You've worked your whole life. You showed up day in and day out. You gave your best when no one was watching. You were the kind of person others leaned on, even when you were tired. You didn't ask for much. You didn't make excuses. You just kept going. And now, you wake up one morning and something's different. You can't quite name it. The walls look the same. The sun still rises like it always has. But something deep inside feels off. You get out of bed, make your coffee, and sit for a moment longer than usual. You stare out the window. And there's a quiet whisper, one you've been ignoring for years. It asks, "Is this really all there is?" Not in a dramatic way. Not in a midlife crisis way. Just a deep down wondering. Because you've done everything they told you to do. You worked hard. You provided. You stayed out of trouble. You didn't ask for shortcuts. So why does it feel like something's still missing? Some days, you tell yourself it's just age. That maybe you're slowing down, like an old truck that needs oil. But other days, you wonder if it's not your body that's tired. It's your spirit. That deep place inside you that used to feel fire, curiosity, purpose. Now it just feels flat. Maybe you haven't said it out loud. Maybe you've never told anyone. But in the quiet hours, when the house is still and no one needs anything from you, you've felt it. That ache, that longing, that quiet voice that keeps saying, "This isn't how I thought life would feel." And the worst part? You feel guilty for even thinking that. Because you're lucky, right? You've got a roof. You've got food. You've got people. So what right do you have to feel this way? But what if I told you? This isn't about being ungrateful. What if the problem isn't with you? What if the system you spent your life in was never built to help you thrive, just to keep you moving? You see, for generations, we were sold a promise. Work hard, keep your head down. Follow the rules, and life will reward you. Respect the boss. Don't rock the boat. Put in your time, and peace will follow. And maybe that worked for a while. But then something changed. The world sped up. The meaning slowed down. And suddenly, showing up wasn't enough to feel alive anymore. Instead of feeling proud, you feel forgotten. Instead of feeling strong, you feel invisible. Instead of waking up with energy, you wake up wondering, "How did I end up here?" It's not depression. It's not weakness. It's not some midlife melodrama. It's a signal. A soul-level signal that something inside you is asking for more. More than routine. More than production. More than just getting through another Monday. It's not about money. It's not even about the job. It's about alignment. About the slow realization that the life you built, the life you were told would fulfill you, doesn't quite match who you become. Let me put it another way. Imagine standing in a room you've lived in for 40 years. It's familiar. You know where everything is. But one day, the light hits different. And you realize, this room hasn't changed, but you have. And here's where it gets really hard. Most people will never talk about this feeling. They'll bury it under gratitude, under distraction, under busyness. Because it's easier to keep moving than it is to stop and feel. But I believe, if you've made it to this video, if you've listened this far, it's because a part of you is ready. Not to quit everything, not to burn it all down, but to remember yourself, to listen to that voice inside, the one that hasn't spoken in years, and say, "I hear you now." This video isn't about blame. It's not about telling you what you should have done. It's about showing you that what you're feeling is real, and you're not alone. Millions of people, especially older adults like you, are quietly carrying this same question. Why does everything look fine, but feel so wrong? And the answer? Well, it's not a simple one, but we're going to explore it together because you deserve more than just survival. You deserve to feel like your life, this one precious life, still belongs to you. In the chapters ahead, we'll explore what modern work really does to the soul. We'll talk about systems, masks, burnout, and truth. We'll hear from real people, folks just like you, who've walked this road. And we'll explore what Carl Jung called the journey back to the self. Not to who you were at 25, not to who others need you to be, but to who you've always been, under the noise, under the masks, under the performance. Because here's the truth. You're not broken. You're just tired of pretending. And maybe, just maybe, you're ready to come home. Let's begin. Let's talk about someone like David. He's 67. Lives in a quiet neighborhood outside of St. Louis. For over 40 years, he worked in IT. First in hardware, then in systems, then managing teams. He didn't jump jobs. He wasn't chasing titles. He just showed up and did the work. Day after day, year after year. He provided for his family, put 2 kids through college, saved for retirement, paid off the mortgage, took care of his wife when she got sick. He did what men of his generation were raised to do: be steady, be strong, be responsible. Now, sitting in the same house he built a life in, he finds himself waking up with a strange heaviness. He's not sick. His blood pressure's fine. The doctors say he's healthy for his age. But something's not right. He stares at the ceiling too long in the morning. He forgets what day it is. Not because he's old, but because every day feels the same. He walks into his office, his home workspace now, and stares at the monitor. The work is the same. The emails keep coming. The system still needs support, but where there used to be curiosity, now there's just routine. He used to find joy in solving problems. Now, it all feels like noise. His wife asks if he's okay. He smiles and says, "Just a little tired." Because what else is he supposed to say? That he feels like a ghost inside his own life? That the world he helped build no longer feels like it was meant for someone like him? He's not depressed. He's not dramatic. He's just tired. Not from doing too much, but from doing the same things for so long without ever stopping to ask, does this still make sense for who I am now? When he tries to share this with others, he gets the usual responses. You're lucky to still have work. Be grateful. At least you're not struggling like the younger generation. And he agrees. He is lucky, but that doesn't mean he's okay. Because there's a kind of ache that doesn't show up on medical charts. IT doesn't have a name, but it follows you. IT lingers in the pauses between meetings. It hums behind your smile at family dinners, and it whispers, "I think I've outgrown the life I built." David's story isn't rare. There are millions just like him, people who played by the rules, who didn't cause trouble, who sacrificed and stayed the course. Now, in the second act of their lives, they look around and wonder why the script still feels like someone else wrote it. These aren't people chasing a fantasy. They're not looking to relive their 20s. They're just trying to feel real again. Feel like their days still carry weight, not just habit. They're not angry. They're not blaming anyone. They're just quietly asking, is it too late to feel alive again? And let's be honest, modern work doesn't make space for questions like that. It's all about performance, output, staying relevant. If you stop, you fall behind. If you question, you're being difficult. If you change, people ask what's wrong with you. But what if the only thing wrong is pretending that nothing ever changes inside us? Here's the thing. We were told that hard work would bring us dignity, and for a while it did, but now many feel like they've traded their identity for a resume. David used to be curious. He loved tinkering with old radios in the garage. He played guitar when the kids were little. He used to tell stories that made his wife laugh until she cried. Now, the radios are dusty. The guitar is in the attic. And the stories? He doesn't tell them much anymore, because these days, everything feels like a task. A checkbox. A reason to stay busy, but not necessarily connected. We measure our lives by accomplishments. By promotions. By how busy our calendars look. But we forget to measure what matters. Do I still feel joy? Do I still feel like myself? Do I even remember who that is? That's where David is. And maybe, in some quiet way, that's where you are too. If that's true, I want you to know something. You're not broken. You're not weak. You're not foolish for feeling this way. You're just waking up to something that's been true for a long time. The life you built isn't wrong. It's just not complete. Because there's a difference between a good life and a full life. Point one checks the boxes. The other stirs the soul. And in the next part of this video, we'll talk about why so many systems feel soulless, why even good jobs can leave us feeling empty, and why it's not your failure, it's the environment you've been operating in. So take a breath, let this land, and if a part of you feels seen right now, that's not a mistake. It's the beginning of something real. Let's be honest. Most of the systems we work in today weren't built for people. They were built for performance. They were designed to keep the wheels turning, to make things run efficiently, to track inputs and measure outputs. That's what they're optimized for. Not meaning, not joy, not connection, just function. Think about your workplace, past or present, the meetings, the deadlines, the endless performance reviews that seem to judge the surface, not the soul. The monthly reports that ask, "Did you hit the number?" But never, "How are you holding up?" From the outside, it all looks fine. Busy, organized, productive. But inside, something's missing. And if you feel that, you're not alone. The truth is, our modern system of work was born out of a very different time. Out of the industrial age. Factories, assembly lines, punch cards. People became cogs, replaceable, interchangeable. Over time, the machines got smarter. The systems became digital. But the core stayed the same. Measure everything, manage everyone, and maximize output. Even now, in our so-called knowledge economy, we haven't let go of that mindset. We've just replaced factory floors with spreadsheets and hand tools with inboxes. But we still treat workers like units, not humans. Like parts of a machine that must keep running, no matter the cost. And here's the dangerous part. When the machine breaks, we repair it. But when people break, we tell them to push through. Take a moment and think about that. How many times have you been told to just hang in there when your soul was screaming for a pause? Let's bring this down to something real. Think about Monica again. She works at a logistics firm in Ohio. She's good at what she does. Her numbers are solid. Her team likes her. On paper, she's a model employee. But inside, she feels invisible. Like her name doesn't matter, only her output. Like she's showing up every day to perform a role that no longer feels like hers. She doesn't complain. She doesn't cause trouble. But at night, when she closes her laptop, there's a deep silence. Not peace. Emptiness. The kind that comes from never being seen, only used. That's what this system does to people. It rewards performance. But it forgets personhood. You get points for showing up, not for showing heart. You get raises for results, not for reflection. You're taught to smile in meetings, even when your soul is tired. And if you ever start to question that, if you wonder out loud, Is there more to this than just productivity? You're told you're ungrateful, or soft, or difficult. But what if you're just honest? What if you're not the problem? What if the system was never designed to honor your full humanity? Here's the thing. Most managers aren't cruel. Most companies aren't evil. But the system itself? It's indifferent. It doesn't have a heart. It doesn't ask what you value. It asks what you can deliver. You see this everywhere. In the language we use, resources instead of people. Utilization rates. Head count. When did people become data points? Now, you might be thinking, but that's just how business works. Sure, but is that how life is supposed to work? Is that how fulfillment is built? Back in the day, when people worked the land, built homes with their hands, repaired their own tools, there was a sense of completion. You could see the fruits of your labor. You could touch what you created. There was a beginning, a middle, and an end. Today, many jobs feel like loops. Endless tasks with no finish line. Emails that never stop. Meetings that feel more like performances than conversations. That's not work, it's noise. And eventually, the noise drowns out your sense of meaning. You start to wonder, what am I really doing here? Let's go back to Monica. Her company sends out surveys about engagement. They put posters on the wall about purpose. But when she asks for a role that fits her strengths better, they tell her to stay in her lane. She goes home, stares at her reflection, and thinks, I used to be someone. That right there, that's the soul starting to whisper. It's not rebellion. It's not weakness. It's recognition. The growing awareness that your inner life can no longer be ignored. And the worst part? The system gaslights you. It says, if you feel disconnected, it's because you're not working hard enough. You're not focused enough. You need better time management. But what if that's not true? What if the real issue isn't your attitude, but the environment? What if you're not burned out because you're broken, but because you're running on empty in a system that only values output? We've created workplaces that look good on paper, but feel hollow in practice. We've built careers that win applause, but cost us our peace. And it doesn't have to be that way. This isn't about quitting your job. It's not about abandoning your responsibilities. It's about naming the truth. The system you're in may never reflect your soul unless you bring it back into the room. The good news? That's still possible. In the next part of this video, we'll explore Carl Jung's idea of the persona, the mask we wear to survive in systems that were never built for our wholeness. Because sometimes, it's not the work that drains us. It's who we have to become just to do it. And when that mask becomes too tight, your soul starts knocking. And that knock? That's where change begins. Carl Jung wasn't just a psychiatrist. He was a mirror, one that showed us who we are underneath the surface. And in a world of polished resumes, elevator pitches, and performance culture, his ideas still hit home. Jung believed we all wear masks. He called it the persona. It's not a disguise to deceive. It's a tool to belong. From the moment we enter society, as children, as students, as workers, we're taught to adjust, to smooth our edges, to present a version of ourselves that fits the room. At first, it feels harmless. We act polite. We dress the part. We nod when the boss speaks, even if we disagree. It's called professionalism, right? But here's the problem. When the mask becomes a habit, it starts to replace the real you. Take Monica again. She's the logistics manager we met earlier. She's got the game down. Blazer on, hair tied, smiles during morning huddles, speaks just enough, not too little, not too much. But inside, She's exhausted, not from the tasks, but from the performance. She wasn't always like this. There was a time she laughed more, shared ideas without fear, wore colors that made her feel bold. Now, her favorite phrase is, "I'm fine." That's the persona at work. Jung said the danger begins when the self and the mask drift too far apart, like tectonic plates. At first, you don't feel the movement, but then the cracks appear. That Sunday night dread, that tight chest at 8 a.m. feeling, that blank stare in meetings when you're pretending to care, those are signals. They're not weakness. They're warnings. Your soul is knocking. The deeper problem? Most systems reward the mask. They say, be a team player. They mean, don't make waves. They say, bring your full self to work. They mean, as long as it's palatable. And so we shrink. We become quiet versions of ourselves, optimized for likability, not authenticity. But the cost is steep. You lose your voice. You lose your spark. And eventually, you lose your sense of who you are. Let's take another real-life story. Richard was a high school teacher in Houston for 35 years. Beloved by students. Admired by staff. But near retirement, something changed. He stopped laughing in the lounge. Started showing up late. Felt empty during lectures. His daughter asked him why. He said, "I don't know who I'm pretending to be anymore. I just know it's not me." That's the mask talking. Jung warned. The longer we wear it, the harder it becomes to remove. Because people begin to know us by the mask, not the man. And when you try to show your real face, it shocks them. You hear things like, "You've changed. Why are you acting different? Just be professional." But you haven't changed. You've just stopped pretending. There's a loneliness that comes with removing the mask. But there's also peace. The first time you say, "I don't agree." The first time you choose rest over overwork. The first time you bring your real voice into the room. Shaky but true. That's when healing starts. Jung said the self wants wholeness, not perfection. And wholeness means embracing all parts. The quiet one, the angry one, the dreaming one, the scared one. Because your true self isn't a brand. It's not a resume. It's not a LinkedIn profile. It's the part of you that feels most alive when you're not being watched. So how do we begin to reclaim it? Start small. Notice when you say, yes, but mean, no. Pay attention to the moments you smile out of obligation, not joy. Write down one thing each day that felt fake and one that felt true. And when you find those true moments, lean in. Maybe it's gardening. Maybe it's music. Maybe it's prayer. Maybe it's just sitting in silence on your porch while the sun sets. Whatever makes you feel like yourself, that's the antidote to the mask. Because the world doesn't need more polite performers. It needs more whole humans. And your soul? It's been waiting patiently. In the next part, we'll explore what happens when the mask stays on too long. When fatigue turns into something deeper. When the soul, tired of being silenced, begins to rebel. We call it burnout, but Jung called it something more. A spiritual revolt. A last cry for authenticity. And maybe, if you're listening, that cry is starting to rise in you too. Let's talk about burnout. Not the buzzword kind you hear in trendy articles. Not the type a 28-year-old throws around after a long week at a startup. But the deep, silent kind. The kind that sneaks up on you after decades of being the strong one. Burnout is not always loud. It doesn't always come with tears, panic attacks, or dramatic breakdowns. Sometimes, it's quieter than that. Sometimes it's just you, sitting at the kitchen table at 6:42 a.m., staring at your coffee and feeling nothing. You slept 8 hours. You ate your breakfast. You checked your calendar. And still, your body feels heavy. Your chest feels tight. Your mind feels foggy. Not from illness. Not from lack of effort. But from carrying the weight of being someone you're not for far too long. This isn't laziness. It's not a bad attitude. It's soul tired. And no vacation can fix that. Carl Jung had a word for this. He called it the revolt of the shadow. The part of us we suppress. The dreams we ignore. The truths we silence just to keep the peace. And eventually, that shadow stops waiting. It starts leaking. Through exhaustion. Through irritability. Through unexplained sadness. Let's look at someone like Daniel. He's 61. Works in finance. Good salary. Decent benefits. He's got the house, the SUV, the golf membership. But every night he pours a drink, sits in the dark, and doesn't say a word. His wife asks, "Are you okay?" He says, "I'm just tired." But what he means is, "I don't know who I am anymore." That's burnout. The world tells us we need to do more self-care. Take a bath. Light a candle. Go on a trip. But burnout isn't fixed by spa days. Because it's not your body that's the problem. It's your spirit waving a red flag. It says, you've been pushing too long for the wrong reasons. You've been performing so well, you forgot what real feels like. You've been showing up for everyone, except yourself. And here's the hardest truth. Burnout often hits the most responsible people the hardest. The caregivers, the breadwinners, the peacemakers, the people who never complain. Why? Because they're the ones most likely to ignore their own needs. They're the ones who say, "It's fine. It's not that bad. I'll rest when this is over." But what if this never ends? What if the system keeps asking and never gives back? Eventually, even the strongest well runs dry. The World Health Organization now recognizes burnout as a workplace issue. But Jung saw it deeper than that. He saw it as a soul issue, a signal that your inner life is out of alignment with your outer reality. You can check every box. Job? Check. Retirement fund? Check. Good reputation? Check. And still feel hollow. Because what's missing isn't productivity. It's purpose. What's missing isn't activity. It's authenticity. Let's go back to Daniel. He didn't always feel this way. There was a time he loved numbers. He felt alive closing deals, solving problems. But somewhere along the way, it became routine. It became metrics. It became politics and performance reviews. And the part of him that used to feel joy, it got quiet, then quieter, until it disappeared. Now he just exists. On the outside, he looks successful. On the inside, he's a ghost. That's not depression. That's not weakness. That's burnout. Jung believed that when we ignore the shadow, we create an inner split. The self we show the world and the self that cries in private. And when those selves drift too far apart, something inside collapses. You feel it in your body. Your back aches. Your sleep gets shallow. You wake up tired. You feel it in your emotions. You get snappy with people you love. You cry at commercials. You feel nothing when you should feel something. You feel it in your memory. You forget appointments. You lose track of days. You reread the same paragraph 3 times. And worst of all, you feel it in your spirit. You stop dreaming. You stop hoping. You stop caring. Burnout is not a sign you're broken. It's a sign something deeper wants to be healed. And the healing doesn't begin with fixing your calendar. It begins with telling the truth. The truth that you're tired of pretending. The truth that you don't want to be everything to everyone. The truth that you miss yourself. You can't schedule your way out of burnout. You have to feel your way through it. And that takes courage. Courage to say, I'm not okay. I need help. I want something more. And then, stillness. Not scrolling. Not checking boxes. Not numbing. Just listening. To the part of you that still remembers who you are. To the voice that says, you're allowed to need more than this. That's not failure. That's awakening. So if you're feeling empty, not just tired, but hollow, pay attention. That's your soul saying, I've waited long enough. In the next part, we'll explore how to answer that call, not by walking away from life, but by walking back toward yourself, toward the life that fits, that heals, that feels like home. And maybe, just maybe, it starts with letting go of who you think you're supposed to be so you can finally become who you really are. Studio microphone fan 6, individuation. HA with grave NH turn TRV, BNTHA with circumflex N, BNM ring CHO hub 1, 302. So now what? You've felt the weight. You've seen the cracks. You've admitted to yourself that something doesn't feel right. You're not broken, but you're also not whole. So the question is, what now? Carl Jung had an answer. A quiet one. Not flashy. Not instant. He called it individuation. A big word that means something simple, becoming who you really are. Not who you were told to be. Not who your title says you are. Not who you became to survive. But you, stripped back. Honest. Whole. Individuation is not a makeover. It's not a to-do list or a weekend retreat. It's a slow return to yourself, to the parts you've hidden, to the truths you've ignored, to the voice inside that's been whispering, this isn't who I really am. Let's be clear. This doesn't mean walking away from your job tomorrow. It doesn't mean tossing your responsibilities out the window. What it does mean is this: start noticing, start listening, start remembering. Individuation begins with small choices. 5 minutes of silence with your coffee, no emails, no phone, just breath, just being. It looks like writing down a thought that scares you and not judging it. It looks like admitting, I don't enjoy this anymore, or I want something different. It's quiet. It's personal. It's sacred. You spent years giving your energy to the outside world, to deadlines, to expectations, to roles you didn't choose. Individuation invites you back inside, not to escape, but to remember. Remember what lights you up. Remember what makes you laugh. Remember what used to make time disappear. And no, it's not always comfortable, because facing yourself is hard. It means feeling what you pushed away. It means grieving parts of your life you never questioned before. All your life, they gave you a picture of what success should look like. A nice home, a good job, a family, some savings tucked away, a retirement plan, a full calendar. They said, if you get all these things, you've made it. So you worked, you stayed late. You played the part. You climbed the ladder. Even when the rungs felt slippery, you hit the marks. But now, sitting in your quiet living room, you're wondering, why does it still feel like something's missing? The picture looks good. The pieces are all there. But the feeling, the deep, settled peace, that's the part that's gone missing. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the lie beneath the picture. Because success, as they sold it, was never really about you. It was about conformity, about meeting expectations, about proving yourself over and over. But what happens when you've proven everything and still don't feel proud? What happens when the applause fades and the silence in your soul gets louder? Let's meet Ray. He's 69, lives in Fort Worth, retired Army vet. After the military, he worked in middle management, supervised teams, hit metrics, collected bonuses. He did what was expected. But one night, sitting on his porch with a glass of sweet tea, he realized something strange. He didn't feel like a success. Not really. He didn't feel like he had lived a life he chose, just one he was assigned. So Ray did something small. He started volunteering at the animal shelter. Then he started training dogs. Then he built a little backyard business, not for money, but for peace. Now, every morning, he wakes up to barking. Not deadlines. He talks with people who aren't trying to climb anything. He fixes fences. He teaches dogs to sit and stay. And he smiles. Because this feels real. Ray may not have a fancy office anymore, but he has peace. And for him, that's what success looks like now. Real success is quiet. It's personal. It doesn't always look impressive, but it feels right. Here's the hard truth. You can have all the outward signs of success, the home, the car, the status, and still feel hollow, because success isn't what others see. It's what you feel when you're alone, when no one's clapping, when the performance ends. Can you breathe easy? Can you sleep without racing thoughts? Can you smile without needing a reason? That's the real measure. Not the dollars, not the degrees, not the followers, but the feeling. Do you feel like your life fits? Like your days reflect your values? Like your time belongs to you? Success is alignment. It's peace of mind. It's knowing you didn't sell your soul to buy someone else's dream. And sometimes, redefining success means letting go. Letting go of titles that never fit. Letting go of goals you never chose. Letting go of applause that came with a cost. Let's meet Yvonne. She's 61. Spent her career in finance. She was the first black woman VP at her firm. She broke barriers. She mentored younger women. She made waves. But in her heart, she missed painting. She missed the quiet joy of mixing color, of making something with her hands. So after retirement, she turned her garage into a studio. And every week, she teaches painting to neighborhood kids. They call her Miss Y. She doesn't miss the boardroom. She misses nothing. Because now, she finally feels like herself. And that's success too. Sometimes success means stepping down, so you can rise up inside. Sometimes it means earning less, but living more. Sometimes it means not being understood, but finally understanding yourself. There's no universal scorecard. There's only your inner compass. And if yours has started pointing in a different direction, that's not failure. That's awakening. Let go of the voices that say, "Don't waste your potential." Ask instead, "What is my potential really for?" Let go of the goals that drain you. Hold on to the ones that nourish you. Let go of shame. Hold on to soul. Because when the world gets quiet and you're alone with your thoughts, that's when you'll know if the life you built is the one you were meant to live. Redefining success is not rebellion. It's reclamation. It's remembering. You are allowed to change. You are allowed to evolve. You are allowed to want different things now. So here's the invitation. Take out a piece of paper. Write down what success meant to you at 30. Then write what it means now. Compare the two. And honor the distance. Because that space, that's where growth lives. You've spent decades chasing what others called success. Now it's your turn to define it for yourself. In the final part of this video, we'll talk about what it means to come home to yourself. Not as a task, but as a triumph. Not as a finish line, but as a return to something sacred, your truth. Let's pause for a moment. Let's sit together in the quiet. You've come a long way through this video, not just in words, but in reflection, in asking the kind of questions that don't have quick answers. Maybe this is the first time in a long time you stopped to ask, how am I really doing? And maybe the answer that comes back isn't loud, isn't dramatic, just honest, just tired. That's not a problem to fix. That's a truth to honor. You see, you spent decades doing the right thing. You got up. You showed up. You made ends meet. You took care of others, even when no one clapped, even when no one noticed. You kept going, and that deserves more respect than any trophy on a shelf. But now, you're noticing something different. Not a breakdown, a breakthrough. A quiet voice inside you saying, there has to be more than this. And there is. There always was. But it's not out there in the noise. It's in here, in the silence, in the space between moments, in the parts of yourself you've had to put aside just to keep moving. Carl Jung once said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. But you're facing it. You're listening. You're returning to the part of yourself that never stopped hoping there might be something more. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. Maybe you don't need another achievement. Maybe you need a porch swing and the sound of your own breath. Maybe you don't need more goals. Maybe you need more grace. Maybe, just maybe, you're not falling apart. You're falling into place. Let's talk plainly. You're not tired because you're aging. You're tired because you've been carrying too much for too long without ever being allowed to set it down. You've had to be strong. You've had to keep it together. And you did. But now, you're allowed to rest. To lay down the mask. To lay down the performance. To come home to yourself. And home doesn't mean a building. It means a feeling. Of belonging. Of wholeness. Of ease. Imagine this. You're sitting on your porch in the early evening. The sky is fading gold. There's a breeze that smells like cut grass. Your dog's at your feet. You're holding a cup of tea or coffee or whatever you like best. And for once, there's no pressure. There's no proving. There's just you. And you're okay. That feeling? That's what we're after. Not perfection. Not performance. Just presence. Because in the end, success isn't measured in paychecks. It's measured in peace. You want to know the real privilege of aging? It's not retirement. It's not grandchildren. It's clarity. The clarity to say, I don't need to pretend anymore. You've earned the right to stop chasing, to stop comparing, to stop running on a treadmill built by other people's expectations, and instead to start walking at your own pace, in your own direction, toward a life that feels like your own. This isn't about escaping responsibility. It's about reclaiming reality. Your reality. The one where you matter, not just for what you do, but for who you are. So here's a question to carry with you. If I stopped pretending, what kind of life would I create? Let it linger. Don't rush the answer, because that question is the doorway to something real, something quieter, something truer. A life where you don't have to play a role anymore, where you don't need applause to feel worthy. A life where you can sit with yourself and feel at peace. You're not broken. You're just done pretending. And that's the beginning of everything that matters. So here's your invitation. Slow down. Look around. Breathe deep. And if that small voice inside you says, it's time to live for real, listen. It's been waiting for you all along. You worked long hours. You paid your dues. You kept the lights on and food on the table. But somewhere between the time clock and the traffic, between the meetings and the bills, you lost a piece of yourself. And no one ever stopped to ask, "How are you really doing?" Here's the truth. You're not tired because you're old. You're tired because you've carried too much, for too long, without ever being allowed to lay it down. This isn't a story about quitting. It's about remembering. Remembering that your life matters. That your soul was never made to serve a spreadsheet. And that peace doesn't come from titles. It comes from being able to sit on your porch at sunset, look out across the yard, and say, "I didn't betray who I am just to be accepted." That right there, that's the kind of success no paycheck can buy. And it starts when you stop pretending and start listening to the voice that's been waiting inside you all along. Have you ever felt like you were doing everything right, but still felt something was missing? What does real success mean to you know?